remember. I just, all of a sudden I fell.
So you don't have any upper and lower body strength at all? Is that what you're saying? Okay, then we just need to leave her on the floor and get her stepped.
What's the video?
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, so we're doing our competencies too. So we need to verbalize what is the weight limit for the maximum.
500.
And this is the piece of equipment on any of the units that you would use to get the patient off the floor. So our patient has fallen face first, which is not a usual thing. Not sure how she got there. So you always want to make sure you've got, before you bring it into the patient's room, that you've got battery storage. And make sure that it was turned off before you grab it, because a lot of times it's left on and the battery will be empty. The batteries are stored on the 3rd floor, MedSurg 3 storage unit, and they're hanging on the wall right by the blanket closet. So this is the battery. I don't know if you want to show the battery. I can send out a video that shows you from the vendor.
Okay.
So we have it on. We're going to reposition her first. And it says select the correct size sling. And Texas Health Alliance, we only have large, which is the one with the green line that we have right here. It's the smallest one we have, so it's way too big for her. And then we have an extra large for those 400, 500 pound patients. 500 pounds is the weight limit. So if you have a patient and they have issues with soiling or incontinence, you're going to want to make sure you've got some sort of pad so that you don't, this is theirs, it's a one person use. So not to soil it, you're going to want to put a pad in it if you can.
Okay.
But you want to make sure that you keep it, when you fit it to them, it's going to be at the coccyx, not underneath the bottom, at the coccyx.
Okay.
That way you can put them on the toilet if you have to. Okay? So, let's roll her. And then we can keep talking.
Alright. So I'm going to roll her. Bring your hand over this way. And just kind of roll you over.
Okay. Alright, and you can also use your draw sheet for that. We didn't have that in the simulation. Okay? You want to put it on? So we're going to put these by the shoulders, and then that should be right at the top of her coccyx once it's on.
Go ahead and roll over that way from me.
Ooh, where did this come from? Is that yours? Make sure they don't have any sharp objects in their clothing. Yeah, it is too big. Okay, alright. We're going to roll you back. And then we're going to go one more time over to that side. This is huge. This may go underneath her bottom. Just so
I was
you know.
going to say just a little bit.
And
Let it fall out.
if she's on the floor, we want to bring the chassis of the maximum up to almost to her bottom. We're gonna have to make.
You're being a good patient right now.
She is being awesome. Okay, while you are clicking her in, you can put the brakes on. When you go to lift her up, the brakes need to be off. That will keep it from tumbling over if the weight gets top heavy. Okay, you going? There's hand controls or there's controls on the stack as well.
So they go on the outside of the leg, right? And then around.
Yes.
Okay.
Up to the middle. They don't crisscross like the old Warriors, but they do go medially. And this wasn't on, so. when they're on the ground, it is easiest to connect the shoulders first because that way you don't have to lift them up. In the bed or in the chair, their shoulders are already up, so do that first and legs last. Was that right? Yes. That backwards. Apologize. On the floor, shoulders first, legs last, because you can lift the legs.
Okay.
In the chair or in the bed, you can lift the bed up for the shoulders. So do the legs first and then the shoulders. Is that far down to going?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Just need to tilt forward.
One round. Just gotta get better. Not cooperating, guys. I'm sorry. It's a terrible video.
It's real life, right? Because we all stumble with it. And
It's not going. It'll go that way, but it's not going forward.
It's also already set here for the section.
It does it from here.
Okay.
Bring it down.
So in this chamber, this is your air leak.
should be good. All right.
Stop
It's
it.
on it. It's just stopping it. I think it's just a. There you go.
So you have two controls instead of having to do the first one. Lift your legs up. It's just connected here, 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 and here. You want to see if that works?
So,
So when you bring her up off the floor, bring her a little bit first before you sit her up again. And then you can start to move her into a seated position.
I'm gonna guide this way because it seems like she's flaring this one a little bit more.
The vendor says that one person can do it. They could, but I always recommend two so that they can watch for anything hurting the patient. You want to just hug yourself and not hold
Yeah, I
on to
told you to
it.
hold on to yourself. Yeah, we're reading. Patient is not compliant. She's a typical patient.
So I'm making sure that move her around. I'm gonna move her back.
No? No, you shouldn't.
And you can adjust the base, side, the width of the legs.
And the end of, yeah.
Where you're going to.
Like, go back to the chair.
In the bed, a lot of times you want it together.
I know. Like covering your whole head.
Swallows you. Okay.
Good. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Now sign you. And you can sign her.
Let's look at skin assessment.
Good job.
I'm behind the posters.
I know what that thing said.
Really? My signature or the person's signature? Which one is it? That's the person's signature. So this would be mine now.
No, this is, okay. Approved validator, that's you. So this one's for me. This is mine.
You got to put my
Maybe yours, yeah.
Do I put my voice on it?
Yes.
No?
Yeah. I thought you asked if there was more.
No, I'm saying if this is mine or is it yours?
Oh, this is mine.
That one's hers, this one's yours.
My pen.
I'm sorry.
Well, Samir, do not leave, we have nobody to replace you.
Is there a-
you do it before. Some bruising. Okay. You can do that on me too, since you know I have. No, I'm you know it wiped off here. Okay, so I know you guys have, this he's a speech therapist doesn't act like this, right? Yeah.
Let me see if I'm recording. Okay, I think I am.
Okay, so for chest tubes are one of those things that is fairly infrequent for most nurses. So it's something that, for me, the important thing to know is where your resources are to review your chest tube information before you get that patient. So there's a lot of resources. So first of all, the Atrium chest tubes, they have a education site that you can go on, and that's a QR code for that. There's also a 24/7 technical support number that you can call if you get stuck and need some help with it. It's also on the front of the chest tube itself. So you don't have to go running and trying to find a phone number. It's right here for you. So you've got that. You've also got clinical skills. That's your approved reference for how to work with the chest tube and what to do. So you can pull that up and go through that as well. Okay, so when you get somebody with a chest tube, most of us, the chest tube's already been put in and we're monitoring and we're taking care of the patient once it's put in. But if you have to put the chest tube in, or you're assisting with that, or you're changing out the chest tube, it comes in a package all together with the tubing and everything you need to get it going. So before you get ready to change out your chest tube, then you want to make sure you get this ready so that you can unplug and plug quickly. But the fluid that you need for the chest tube is packed right here on the back. You twist this off and you're going to put it in here, and you're going to fill up this chamber up to this line right here. Okay? If you get it too full or not full enough, if you need to add or subtract fluid at any time, the port to do that is on the back. So you can add some more water if you need it. Okay. Then when you get your patient and you're doing your assessment, you're going to do your normal head-to-toe assessment on your patient, but you've got some extra things to do with your chest tube. So the first thing is to check the insertion site on the patient, just like you would any other surgical wound. And so you're checking for all those signs and symptoms of infection. But also with the chest tube, if the chest tube itself gets dislodged or pulled out, they can get that subcutaneous emphysema under the skin that feels like Rice Krispies when you touch it. So you're going to want to report that as well. And keep an eye on it because that stuff can spread. I've seen it get up all in their neck and up in their ears and everything. Then you start worrying about airways. So you're going to do that, but you're also going to check, part of your assessment is assessing the working of the chest tube itself, making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So when you've got your order for it to be to suction, you should see right here in the window, if it's hooked to suction, there's an orange bellows in here. It'll pull this out to this little mark right here. So it's a good, real quick visual that the suction's working. It also comes already programmed to the -20, which is the most common setting for the suction. The suction's regulated here, not at the wall. If you have to change it, your doctor's ordered you to adjust the suction. There is a wheel right here that turns this suction dial. Okay, so you can change it there. Then you're going to check your area down here where you put the water. That's your air leak chamber. Okay, this gives you a visual too. If there's an air leak, you'll start to see bubbles in here. Now you'll tidal with respirations like waves, but you shouldn't see any bubbles. So this is your air leak monitors. So if there's a little bubble here, you've got a small leak. The further over the bubbles travel, the larger the leak. Okay. You're also going to check and watch this little ball here. This is your water seal. And so you want, that little ball should probably float right around here at the same level as the water. Sometimes if there's been a buildup of interthoracic pressure, you'll see this little ball in the water start to sort of be sucked up this way. If you're connected to suction, you can relieve that pressure by pressing this little valve right here in the chest tube. It's on the back, right there, until the ball goes back down to its level. But you want to do that with the suction on, because you're releasing pressure. You don't want it to be too low. So of course you're gonna. This is your collection chamber. So you want to check that as well. Make sure that your ionos were done properly and everything was marked. If it gets turned upside down or it falls over, you can right the chest tube. You can work with it a little bit, manipulate it to get this stuff back. It's not gonna hurt it. You're also going to check the taping of your connection between the actual chest tube and the tubing, and you want to make sure that it's tight and that it's been taped well. So there is a best practice for how you tape your connections, and it's right here. And this is an illustration right out of Clinical Skills. So it's a piece of tape across the connection on the top, across the connection on the bottom, and then one on either side that holds those two pieces of tape in place. So let's see. So if you are assessing this and you have bubbles across here, you've got a leak. Don't panic. We need to find out where the leak's coming from. Is it coming from the chest or is it coming from your tubing? If it's coming from somewhere in your tubing, you can just change out your chest tube and you're fine. Of course, if it's coming from the patient, then we need to call the doctor and let him know. But you do that by clamping off the tube up close to the patient where it's inserted for just a second while you're watching this. If the bubbles keep bubbling while you've got that clamped off, then you know the hole's up here somewhere, right? If it stops, then it's further down. And you can walk down the tube, crimping it off until you get it. Once you get past the hole, the bubbles will stop, so you'll know what's in there. Okay. So then you're going to replace the chest tube. And to do that, you're going to have this all set up properly, have it ready to go, and you're going to do that cross clamp on the tubing. Some people use this cross clamp. I always use my hand because I can't forget to let go of it. I can forget to unclamp. So I always use my hand. And you're just going to unplug and plug really quickly. Take the old chest tube off and put the new one on. Okay. Let's see. To transport, if it's hooked to suction, the only thing you want to do is just make sure you're unplugging it from the suction. Okay. In other words, you're not going to clamp it. You're going to make sure it's down below the patient's chest, that there's no dependent loops. You're not sitting on it, doing any of those kinds of things. You can get a specimen too from the drainage. You have a specimen port right here that you can get. Sometimes it's kind of difficult from where this is. In a pinch, it's your plan B, C, D, E. You can use the tubing. It is a self-sealing tubing. The thing you got to remember is that you have to use a needle that's 22 gauges or smaller. Okay. You don't want to create too big of a hole because then you're going to have an ear leak.
So just again, if they're hooked on suction, we have to take them somewhere.
You turn the suction off and unhook it from the wall.
And we don't clamp.
You don't clamp.
Okay. And so what do we? Okay, that's it. Okay.
Yeah. So you just pull the suction off.
Gotcha. Okay.
There may be, and check your physicians. Some of your physicians, I know where I work, one of them likes us to use the portable suction to take the patient down whatever chest x-rays or whatever they're doing with the patient.
Okay.
That might come up. If that's so, then you just connect the portable suction and send them over.
Okay.
Let's see if there's anything else. If it becomes dislodged at the insertion site, that's where you use that sterile dressing and you tape it on the 3 sides. If it becomes dislodged at any point below the insertion site, then that's when you get to recreate that water seal. So you're going to stick the end of the tubing into a container full of sterile water until you can get a new one connected. Okay. Let's see, what else? What have I left out? Any questions? That's about
Oh,
it.
thank you. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, you've got lots of resources too. So, and here's
I think I took one last time, but I'll
You
leave
have
it
one?
on,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll leave it on the floor just in case.